fighting, boxing taking place, someone asks why he's doing this. And their question is really geared towards, because you want to be the champion, or because you have a burning desire to win fights, or whatever. And he said, I know what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for milk. And his whole heart was given to his children. His whole desire was to provide for them and to give to them. And tonight we're going to talk about giving and look at this whole issue of what it is to be a giver. But I wanted to start with reading a few pages or a few paragraphs from an article someone sent me from a website called Live Science. And it's called Health, the Key to Happiness, Give Money Away. Okay, one paragraph says, new research reveals that when individuals dole out money for gifts for friends or charitable donations, they get a boost in happiness, while those who spend on themselves get no such cheery lift. Goes on to say later, Dr. Elizabeth Dunn said that she was studying how people spend their money, or she said how people spend their money is at least as important as how much money they earn. She's talking about within the context of experiencing happiness and contentment in life. Later it says, statistical analysis revealed personal spending had no link with a person's happiness. In other words, where I spend my money, how much I spend. But spending on others and giving to charity was significantly related to a boost in happiness. So whether I spend a lot or a little on myself isn't really going to impact my overall happiness and contentment in life, but giving does impact that. Regardless of how much income each person made, Dunn said, those who spent money on others reported greater happiness, while those who spent more on themselves did not. Now that's significant, isn't it? We don't give strictly out of necessity or strictly to needs. There's just something inside of us, whether we have a lot or a little, we need to give. We have the need to give in order to experience the joy and the peace and the happiness that God has for us. Later it says, in another experiment, the researchers gave college students a $5 or $20 bill, asking them to spend the money by that evening. Half the participants were instructed to spend the money on themselves, and the remaining students to spend it on others. Participants who spent the money on others, which included toys for siblings and meals eaten with friends, reported feeling happier at the end of the day than those who spent the money on themselves. If as little as $5 spent on others could produce a surge in happiness on any given day, why don't people make these changes in their lives? Why don't we become more outwardly focused and more prone to give? And finally, people spend a lot of money to make their lives feel meaningful, significant, and important. This is the conclusion of one of the authors of the article. When you give away money, you are making that same kind of purchase, only you're doing it in a more effective way. Let me read that again. People spend a lot of money to make their lives feel meaningful, significant, and important. All right? What ways? New clothes, cars, food, larger homes, just on and on the list goes. Even things like, I suppose, like the electric bill to keep the house cool, or the gas bill in the winter to keep it warm. That people spend a lot of money to make their lives meaningful, significant, and important. When you give money away, you are making that same kind of purchase. In other words, you're doing something to make your life meaningful, significant, and important. Only you're doing it in a more effective way. And then finally, he added, what you're really trying to buy is meaning in life. Giving away money to a cause you believe in is a more effective purchase than buying a t-shirt that says, save a whale. Isn't that significant? Better to give money away to lead people to Jesus than to buy a t-shirt that says Jesus saves, in other words, from our context. So this is all speaking to the issue that we were created to be givers. And if we were created to be givers, then we're not going to live fulfilled lives until we really get in touch with that and begin to give as a part of who we are.
I mean, there are many things we're created for. We're created for relationship. And we all intuitively know that. So we draw towards relationship with other people. And we want to find friends. We want to find those that we can share our lives with and share our hearts with. We are created to do meaningful things in life. And everybody's striving to find something meaningful to do. But we're also created to give. And so tonight, what we're going to talk about is giving. And from the perspective of what does it mean to be what we're going to call, for the sake of this message, a core giver. What is a core giver? Now, the way I would define that is this. For a core giver, giving isn't an add-on to their life. It isn't just something that, oh yeah, I'll do that too. I'll give also. It isn't something that they do when they have more than they know what to do with, so they give a little bit, or when they're in a situation where they're moved emotionally, and so they give. A core giver is someone who doesn't give just casually, but giving is part of who they are. And they've gotten in touch with that, and they've become comfortable with that. And they recognize that giving is part of who they are. And so when they give, it's flowing from the core of their being. It's from the core of their identity, and it's a wholehearted sort of thing. Now, there are many benefits to being a core giver, and that's where we're going to start tonight. I read this passage last week in some devotions I was doing, and it struck me so much that I wanted to put it here right at the beginning of the message. Some of you are familiar with this, Malachi 3:10 and 11. It's verses from the Old Testament, which is the part of the Bible that was written before Jesus came. It was all written predicting Jesus' coming and leading up to the birth of Christ. But in this case, the prophet Malachi was speaking to the nation of Israel because they were not fulfilling what God had commanded them to do as far as giving was concerned. And here's what he said. He says, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, so that there may be food in my house. And test me now in this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open for you the windows of heaven and pour out for you a blessing until it overflows. Then I will rebuke the devourer for you, so that it will not destroy the fruits of the ground, nor will your vine in the field cast its grapes." So it starts off here, and really God invites us to a foolproof test of God's faithfulness. That's the first thing we see here. It's one of the aspects of giving that God invites us into. He says, test me in this. And so if we're wondering, is God faithful? If we're wondering, is giving really the right thing to do? Then God says, here, just try it. Test me in this. If you test me with the right heart, you'll see the benefits of giving in your life. Now, the tithe, when it says bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, a lot of people mistake the word tithe or use it interchangeably with offering. Any money I give is a tithe. And that's not really the case. The word tithe means 1/10. And so they were, as part of God's nation, they were instructed by God to give 1/10 of everything, all the income they had, to give 1/10 of it to God to operate the temple and to run the religious system of Israel. And they hadn't been doing that. But God calls them to do that. And as I thought about that, I wonder why they didn't follow through with this. I wonder why they didn't give the way God had instructed them to. And I mean, the answer, I think, is pretty simple, for the same reasons that we don't give. If you can think of any period of time, I can think of periods of time when I was discouraged or when I was fearful, when giving was not the thing that was on the top of my list. And so fear would be one of the things that kept them from giving. The fear, will I have enough? If I give 1/10, that's so much. Will I have enough left over to take care of myself and my family and to meet all of our needs? Maybe debt. I think today, particularly, debt makes it difficult for some people to give because, they just haven't spent wisely or perhaps there have been medical bills that have been heaped on them unexpectedly, but there's debt that they're trying to pay off, and and so they feel that they just can't give. And